You see that screen right there? That's the US dollar chart from January 2025. US dollar at around 108. Look at that fractal on the screen right there. Do you see that yellow fractal? Look at this chart right now, the US dollar, breaking a key trend line. What makes it so compelling, and we're going to tie this into Bitcoin, is what is happening right here at this trend line in blue on the US dollar chart as it's falling, how it plays into the macro cycles of crypto. And I'm going to show you exactly how in this video. Hit the subscribe and like on the way in. Bitcoin, a warning sign on the daily for the short term. We have not only a technical analysis warning sign, but we kind of have this M2 global liquidity index kind of flashing a potential warning for a short-term downside. So this, I think, video will offer a nice macro view, but also a nice short-term roadmap, whether you're a Bitcoin holder, altcoin holder, whatever. So please hit the subscribe and like on the way in, and let's just jump into it. I want to start with the US dollar chart. I'm not going to show a clip, but you all know we've been tracking this very closely. This was around 108 when we tracked this in January 20th, 2025, and we were talking about just Trump and his approach to his policy and what he wants to see happen. We were talking about this fractal from last cycle or last term for Trump playing out. That's why we've been tracking this fractal, and you can just see what has started to happen. So here we are, we're at this lower trend line of this wedge. And so if I zoom out and we kind of get context of Trump's first term back here, you can see how we're kind of like down in this territory now. So the question is, as it relates to crypto and Bitcoin, what was happening right around then? July 2017. If we go to Bitcoin charts, let's check that out. Zoomed out on the Bitcoin charts, you can see Bitcoin had, exited the previous bear market and basically had broken all-time high and was in a retracement of some kind in January or July 2017. Now, at the very same moment where the US dollar is testing the lower trend line, once again, similar to July 2017, you go to a Bitcoin chart, once again, Bitcoin has exited the bear market, it has broken all-time high, and we're in a consolidation phase. We're in a throwback. So that is a very nice piece of data coming from the US dollar chart. And it's very much overlaid also with kind of this inverse head and shoulders that is playing out. There are so many moving parts, so much confluent data, but right now we're getting the throwback of the inverse head and shoulders to the neckline. Just such a nice technical move. And then confluent with that, if you look at that red neckline, the multi-year neckline of the inverse head and shoulders, there's a 50-week moving average that Bitcoin has seen support so far. And I want to actually make a very strong note of the 50-week moving average around $77,000. Because when we start going and we start looking at the daily, this is where the short-term warning is. So on the zoomed out, in case it wasn't clear, we are in a very similar area from a US dollar perspective as right here. And what followed was continued downside for the US dollar. And you can kind of even see on the fractal. But what followed for Bitcoin was, if you're looking zoomed out, was a multi-month bull run, a parabolic bull run. Same for altcoins. So that is to say, once this consolidation is over and we have more clarity from Jerome Powell and what they're doing at the Fed, we have more clarity on tariffs. I think something very powerful is getting ready to happen. Now, that's a zoomed out perspective. Going on the zoomed in, we have warning signs. Before I even talk about potential downside, there's a case for upside. There's a case. This 50-day moving average, you can see Bitcoin right now is just, it's been grappling. Look at that 50-day moving average in blue, and it is like directly confluent with that yellow line, this lower high trend line. Let me move this global liquidity for a second, but you just see this trend that Bitcoin has been in, and it is having trouble breaking the trend line, breaking that blue line, the 50-day moving average. There's resistance on the very short term. There is the case Bitcoin escapes and says, I don't care about resistance. I don't care about the uncertainties of Jerome Powell and tariffs, and starts making a move to the upside. The real bullish trigger we want to watch is $87,000. It's the 200-day moving average. We really want to see Bitcoin kind of get back above that area. And then we can really start talking about flipping this trend, to the upside. We can watch for upside and that potentially happening, but I think it's a very good idea to anticipate continued downside, especially as we kind of are waiting for the very big one. And this is a very, this is a very popular topic right now. It's M2 Global Liquidity Index that you see in yellow. So if global liquidity, if Bitcoin continues to track global liquidity, and you can kind of see Bitcoin just tracking this on the daily chart right here, guess what? There's two things in play. Number one, there is continued upside, right? Obviously, but there's also continued downside, as you can kind of see illustrated on this chart. So let me kind of just stretch this a little bit, and we kind of see how Bitcoin's been tracking. And this is a 108-day lag. That's probably the most popular lag. But you kind of see how from now until around May 7th, the beginning of May, there's kind of just choppy waters potentially ahead. So if we take that and we pair that up with the potential for resistance at the moving average areas for Bitcoin and just this lower high trend, Bitcoin could fall once again. And so you can see down here is around $77,000, close to $78,000. That's the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders that we just looked at. That's the 50-week moving average in blue, that blue line, all down in that $77,000 area. So for Bitcoin, we could see Bitcoin fall once again to test that area. We would have to see if it holds. If not, we might get a lower low in price. We could see Bitcoin fall into the lower 70s. Either of these moves, in my opinion, would be very normal for the bottoming out structure of Bitcoin before Bitcoin does catch up to M2 money supply and actually makes a move to the upside. And who knows in this time frame what happens with tariffs, what happens with Jerome Powell and all the rumors surrounding what the Fed is going to do. Who knows? But looking at this chart, you can just kind of see just the collision of macro bullishness with just zoomed in uncertainty. So I think it's a good idea for Bitcoin holders to anticipate first level of support, $77,000, $78,000. And then if markets get crazy, if who knows what headlines will cause, markets fall below that support, Bitcoin hits a lower low in terms of price structure, right? And then we're kind of just like putting in some type of falling wedge. Even in the 75, lower 70s, it's in play for Bitcoin. Each dip, and this is very similar to if we kind of zoom out and look at this last consolidation structure, each dip is very similar to what was happening back here, 2024. And I think there is smart money taking advantage of all of these bottoming out phases, whether it was right here, whether it's here, whether we get another one and it's here or here. No matter what, I think it's obvious, especially if you start looking on chain, that there's a lot of smart money accumulating Bitcoin right now. And so that will probably continue to be the case in terms of Bitcoin as well as altcoins if there is continued consolidation to the downside. I just think right now, I know many of you are like me and you're just kind of like, you want to get into an uptrend, especially if you're an altcoin holder. But I think right now, it's just a better idea to continually, obviously, anticipate the short-term volatility. So if and when it happens, we know what we're watching for. We kind of have that short-term roadmap. But for me, it's on the macro. It's paying attention to the bigger picture. And I'm going to do a video a little bit later about Bitcoin dominance because it's making a very nice move to the upside. And I want to talk about altcoins in a video later tonight. So, but that's for an altcoin video. This is Bitcoin analysis, and that's kind of what I'm anticipating. Short-term choppiness, looking for a break to the upside. $87,000, $88,000 is the area to break for Bitcoin if it's going to really start making a move. And then we can start talking about the bullish reversal on the macro if that starts happening. So I wanted to just do an update today. There's a lot going on in the markets, but I thought just a general analysis video of Bitcoin price and just really tracking this dollar chart, bringing it all together would be worthwhile. Hit the subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like. I will see you in the next video. God bless.